Final chapter in 2 Kings 5, but you're going to have to put that on hold, and all of us are going to have the challenge of remembering where we were for 2 weeks. But the positive side of this whole deal is that we have a couple with us this morning who I know need no introduction to you all because they've been part of our church for so long in their ministry to Africa. And Eddie and Linda Mensinger are here. They're going to be, Eddie's already shared in the Hispanic church this morning, and they'll be sharing again a message with us this morning in the next hour. But for right now, we have a chance to have a conversation and a catch up with what God's been doing in their lives and their ministries, and just a chance to praise God for the work that He does through them and just get an update. So let's open with a word of prayer, and I'm going to invite Eddie and Linda to come up and take over. Father, we thank you for our time together this morning, for bringing us this special couple, Eddie and Linda, to share with us. And we thank you for the privilege we've had of being a small portion of their ministry for so many years, and being able to see through their eyes the work that your hands have done in Africa. We especially thank you for bringing them back to us this time, as they've been caught in some rather difficult circumstances on their last trip there, for bringing them out by your hand and to your glory. We just pray that you would continue to be with those brothers and sisters of ours who endure much difficulty even yet, and that you would glorify yourself through them and make yourself known to the nations. We thank you, Father, for this chance to be together this morning, and just give you praise in Jesus' name. Amen. Eddie, take it away.
Thank you, Ron. It's good to be back at Mapton again. First of all, I'd like to thank all of you who contributed so generously to help our friend Armand, who is now the head of our association in Cameroon. You supported him when he was in seminary, and now he's the president of our association. But unfortunately, he's living 1,000 kilometers from the capital city where he needs to be doing his work. And so I'm just so grateful for your generous contribution that's already made it possible to get his house all fixed up and everything, and this will also cover his rent for a whole year. So now the only thing is left is to get him to move down there, hopefully next month. So we'll be telling you more about that, but probably your gift will cover about 3/4 of the expenses. So thank you so much. This was a tremendous help. As many of you know, we just recently returned from another trip to Africa. This time we went back 2 months earlier, and that was providential, or we wouldn't have got much done. We went the 2nd of January to attend our annual conference in Cameroon, up north of Garoua, where I hadn't been before. Linda was there. And things were going along fine. We were moving across the country as we usually do. And then we get down to Yaoundé, the capital, and they say, well, you know, we're not sure you're going to be able to go much further. Things are falling apart over in Central Africa. So it was only by faith that we got a visa for 1 month rather than the 3 month we normally have. And as we finished our class in Cameroon, they said, well, things look good now. Come on over. So we did. We went to Bangui, and we got in 5 out of 6 weeks of classes. And then all of a sudden the roof caved in. On Palm Sunday, the rebel soldiers marched into the capital and robbed everybody around us. We were the only mission that wasn't touched. We just thanked the Lord. There's some real miracles there. But anyway, for about a week, the bullets were landing on the roof day and night, and we heard all kind of rumors about what's going in the city. We didn't dare go outside the door. So we weren't sure how and when or if we were going to get out. But we did feel the Lord's presence. He was very real to us. So that's a story in itself. And since Linda's the storyteller, not me, I give historical facts, but she puts some meat on the bones. So I'll let her share with you our experiences of getting out. And then in the next hour, we'll be having some pictures to show, along with the message from God. So Linda, you take over now.
December 18th for France, where we spent 2 weeks with our family in Dijon, had Christmas, had New Year's. Then the 2nd of January, we flew to Yaoundé, Cameroon. Now, we have been doing this for several years, and we usually start in Cameroon. And we teach classes there. One of the things that's getting a little hard in Cameroon is that we have to move around so much. And I guess at our age, moving from place to place gets to be a bit difficult. But anyway, we arrived in Cameroon, and in 2 days, we had to take a plane and go to Garoua, Cameroon. And he informed me, he says, it takes 5 hours to get to Garoua. I said, what? 5 hours on the plane? We could go to Europe in that time. What is going on? Well, we discovered that the plane took off from Yaoundé, it went west to Douala, and it landed. And then it took off from Douala, and it went east all the way to Chad. And then finally got back to Garoua in the afternoon. People were there to meet us, and we were there for the Cameroon National Conference, and we were there for about 2 weeks. Now, we will be showing you on the pictures the place we stayed. That was real interesting too. But let's go back to Yaoundé a little bit. When we got there, all the Central African missionaries were in Yaoundé. The rebels had threatened to come in at Christmas time, so they had all left Central Africa and were over in Yaoundé, hoping that things would settle down and they could go back. And Heidi told us when we got there, she says, I'm not sure you're going to be able to even get into Central Africa. I said, we have 6 weeks. Usually these things settle down in that amount of time. So we aren't going to worry about it till we come right down to it. You know, we've got 6 weeks in Cameroon. We've got a lot of work to do here, so we'll decide that later. Well, we went to Garoua. We had our classes there. Then we took a non-air-conditioned bus to Yaoundé, 5 hours on that bus. And we had a... Yeah, well, Eddie says there was one bush stop just along the side of the road. All the men got off, the women did not. So at any rate, we get to Yaoundé. We had a week there. We get back to Yaoundé, and our CAR missionaries are still there. Well, what's going on in CAR? Well, one day it sounds good, another day it sounds really bad. So they're still sitting it out, and we had 2 weeks in Yaoundé, and during that 2 weeks needed to decide whether we would get a visa or not. Now, visas in Africa are expensive, so you don't want to just buy them and then not use them. So finally one morning, Eddie comes in before I get out of bed. He says, you know, I think we should get a month visa for CAR. Oh, I said, that's a lot of money if we don't use it. 15 minutes later, Heidi calls and she says, I think you guys should get a month visa for CAR. About an hour after then, we get an email from our field director. Says, I think you guys should go ahead and get a month visa for. I said, all right, get it. So the nice thing about that was that the man who took care of that was in Eddie's class. And so we just gave him our passports, we gave him our money, and we had them the next day. So then at the end of those 2 weeks, we went on to Douala, and things looked pretty good in CAR. Heidi was planning on going back. In fact, she came through Douala. We had supper together. She flew out the next morning, and we had our week in Douala. We took the Kenyan Airlines, flew into Bangui. Everything was calm, and we arrived safe and sound, and almost immediately started our classes out at the seminary. I taught the life of Abraham to the wives in the seminary. I had taught that to them before, but I had a whole new group, so I was able to teach it again. And Eddie taught his courses. Actually, he finished, I believe, 2 of them. Still had Daniel to finish. You see, the seminary is 17 kilometers out of town. So we had to make that trip every day in one of our trucks, about 10 miles. There were 2 trucks left on the Bongi station. Where were the rest of them? Well, we had left them at a place called Gamboa, clear over by the border of Cameroon, because things were so unstable. We didn't want to lose all of our trucks, so they kept the 2 worst ones at the station and left those over there. So if there was war, they could get them into Cameroon very quickly. So we took one of these nice trucks every morning, had to go through 2 big markets to get there. It was always a bit of a challenge, but we would go out and have our classes. When I had finished up my course, I finished up in 5 weeks and had given the final exam, and when I was finishing the very last day, my telephone rings. Well, always my telephone was at the very bottom of the sack, and so I dug and dug and dug, and by the time I got it out, they had hung up. But I saw that it was Janet at our office, and I thought, oh, I will just go ahead and finish the course, and then I will call her back. And that's what I did. And when I called her back, she said, we just wanted you to know that the rebels are on the move. They have taken over Bosingwa, and they have taken over, Bosambeli. The message we have for you and Eddie is do not go anywhere on your way home. Come straight home to the mission. All right. After we were done and we had had chapel, we got in the car and we got to 12 kilometers, which is the entrance into the city. And if you're going to be stopped anywhere, you're probably going to be stopped there. Calm as could be, we drove right through it and got to the mission station safely. Back up just a little bit. When I told them out at the seminary that the rebels were on the move, that they had taken over Bosambeli and Bosingwa, I only told that to the church leaders, or to the school leaders out there. But it wasn't long before all of the students knew about it. And you could just see the fear on their faces. This group of soldiers, now there were 5 groups altogether. Most of them were from Chad and the Sudan, about 80% Muslim. And they had caused a reputation wherever they had gone. They were not nice. I know people tell us how nice Muslim people are, but this group was not. And every place they went, they pillaged, they stole, took everything the Africans had, all the computers, any car, anything of any value, and some things that weren't of any value. They just took everything, had abused the people, had killed some of them. So yeah, they were scared to death when they heard that they were heading towards Bongi, and rightfully so. So at any rate, we get into the mission, and we were supposed to go to a birthday party. Now the birthday party was for a Wycliffe missionary, but it was at the Baptist mission. Now you see there are 3 main missions. There's Wycliffe, and there's the Brethren, and there's the Baptist, and we're a close group. We pray together, we eat together, we share our problems with one another. And so it was, this little Wycliffe gal was staying at the Baptist mission. It was her birthday. We were going to go celebrate it, but we decided that at this point, all white people, Bunjus were called in Africa, should be staying in the mission compound, should not be wandering around, because some of those soldiers had managed to get into the city and they could grab one of us and hold us for hostage to get money. So stay at home. So we weren't able to go to the birthday party. We had our own little celebration all together at our station, and then we were told that from now on, until we find out what's going to happen, you are not supposed to leave the station. My brave husband informed Heidi one day that he was going to just go a little ways down the road and get a loaf of bread. It's not far. She says, you stick your head out, somebody may use you for target practice, and I'm going to be the one who has to call your daughter and tell her what happened. That's a call I don't want to make. So no, you are not going outside the station. And that was that. Saturday, we got word that there was fighting out at kilometer 12, where we had come through the day before. And then we heard that the South Africans had been in there with their army, and they had been trying to hold these people off. And it was a battle between the rebel soldiers, the 5 groups that were called the Seleka, which in Songo means a union of different groups. The Seleka soldiers were fighting the South African soldiers. There were 2,000 rebel soldiers, there were 200 South African soldiers. And the South Africans held them off that day, but they lost 13 people in the process. So we knew it was only a matter of time, and they would be coming into Bangui. Saturday, we got word from the French embassy, and we'd been told by our embassy, now listen, we are no longer here. They had left at Christmas time and had not come back. But you were under the guidance of the French. If anything happens, they will take care of you. All right. We get word from them on Saturday, pack a suitcase, be ready to leave momentarily. We got the suitcase all packed. That was the last we ever heard of them. Never heard another word from the French all during the war. We tried to get in contact with them. What do we do? Not a word. We couldn't even get through to their embassy. So much for that. Saturday, it was tense because we knew there was fighting out at the edge of town. We had 2 child evangelism workers from Ghana and had stayed at our guest house, and nice young men. Well, one isn't quite so young, but at any rate, very nice people. And they had, checked out child evangelism and CAR. They had gone over to Congo, and I can remember Heidi yelling at them, if the war begins, don't come back. Saturday, here comes a taxi, and these 2 men get out. Oh, we thought, oh no. And Heidi said, haven't you got word? We're just before having a war here. Oh, they said, we tried to check, and they said, that the soldiers are still 70 kilometers out of town. There should be no problem. We said, well, they're closer than that. They immediately got in the taxi, went back out of the airport to try to get a flight out. There was nothing. They tried to get back to the mission. There were crazy people running all over the area with machetes. They had a horrible time even getting back to the mission, but they got back and knew that they would be staying until this calmed down some. Sunday morning I woke up and we were told, do not go out for church. Eddie was supposed to preach to us missionaries who were there. Do not go out to church, it's not safe. But I woke up Sunday morning and heard this horrible argument going on. And I thought, what in the world? I get up and go to the window of the mission upstairs, and it was a soldier arguing with somebody that wanted in town. And here were national soldiers all up and down the street with a pretty good sized arsenal at each place. And I thought, this is not good. Well, at 8 o'clock, we heard mortar fire in the distance, and then the guns got closer and closer. We heard them going off constantly. And at that point, Janet, one of our missionaries, comes up and she says, you guys up here on the 2nd floor better get down to the 1st floor, close the shutters, and come down to either my apartment or Heidi's apartment. And so we headed down the steps when a big blast of gunfire went off, and we all ended up in Janet's apartment because it was the closest. And the guards were also with us, and we were a whole bunch in there. There weren't enough chairs. Some were sitting on the floor because you had to be in this one room. It was really about the only one that was really safe. And so I, fortunately enough, found a chair. And I was sitting there, and I had gone through gunfire once before, kind of crossfires. We were trying to get out of Bangui, and I thought I had completely resolved that. No problem. But when those guns started going off, it all came back. I sat there in that chair and just shook. And I wanted to cry. But my childhood training came back when there were just two of us in our family. I was the oldest, and my brother Bruce. And whenever we'd go to the doctor or anything, Mom would say, "Now, Linda, you have to be strong so Bruce won't cry." Bruce always cried anyway, so I don't know what this was always all about. But at any rate, I knew that there were some of our missionaries there who had never gone through anything like this. And I thought, now you've got to be strong for them. Our two child evangelism workers had been through wars in Africa before. And you know, I can't help but feel it was of the Lord that they didn't get out, because they took over. They came down and they started singing some praise songs, and we started joining in. For a while I couldn't sing, but after a while it got better and I could join in, and then we would have a time of prayer. And then we would sing again and pray again. And as we did that, you would just kind of feel the fear leave the room. And we sort of felt that, as they said, don't depend on the French. They'll let you down. Well, as far as we were concerned, they had indeed done that. But God is here, and God will take care of us. God knows all about it. And so it really helped to calm the whole situation, and I think everybody just felt better. It was Palm Sunday, so afterwards Eddie gave his little sermon, he sang again, but it was noon, or afternoon, and everybody was getting a little hungry. Well, you know, our electricity had gone off at Friday evening, and that meant we didn't have any more refrigerators with electricity. So, excuse me, we were trying to eat ourselves out of the refrigerators. It seemed like everybody had frozen chickens in their refrigerator, so we had a lot of chicken. We go out, Jackie Jensen and Janet and I, to start dinner. We look out on the lawn, and out in front of our largest building there, our largest home, there were 5 people sitting in our yard, and we thought, who are they? Well, about that time the guard came up, and he was very courageous. He said, I'll go out and check them out. So as soon as he steps outside the door, they start coming towards us. We didn't see any guns, so we thought they probably were friendlies. And they came up and they said, actually we're from the UN building, about 3 houses up from here, and the rebels came in to that building, took everything out of the house. We were so frightened. We grabbed the keys to the car and began hopping over fences until we landed in yours. If we hopped one more, we'd be on the street, and they didn't want to be out there because that's where the fighting was. So we decided just to sit down. We walked around. We didn't hear anybody while the guns were going off so much that they couldn't. So we just sat down to wait for you. They were completely traumatized. They were scared to death. And they had a girl with them. Now, she had gone to get money. Apparently, one of her relatives worked for them. And she got caught in this. How in the world they got her over all those high fences, I don't know. But she went into Janet's apartment, sat in the corner, and didn't move the rest of the day. She was completely scared to death. And they told us that, when they told us that the pillaging had started, we started getting phone calls. We got a call from the Baptist. The rebels have been here. They said, now we can't harm you because you're under the protection of the French. Oh, nuts, you know. But we want your money and we want your cars. Well, the Baptists had given them about $1,000 and they took off. And they left. They didn't take the cars. We got a call from Wycliffe, and they said they had been completely pillaged. every computer taken out of the place. They had stolen their cars. They'd stolen all the motorcycles of the Africans who worked there. They said, there isn't anything left. Why were they pillaged even more than the others? I think it was the area where they were located. It was a little ways further from town and a little easier for this group to get to. So they were pillaged very badly. And when we heard all of this, Janet went to our safe, took out all the money that was in it, kept $1,000 in case they should come in, and then divided all this money amongst us. She says, hide it, put it somewhere, get it out of sight. And so we did that and expected, 3 doors up that's not all that much. We expected those rebels to be in there at any minute. We went ahead and had dinner. We fed 15 with the UN company that we had. And for a while in the afternoon, the shelling did kind of die down a little bit, and we went upstairs. As long as we were in an inside bedroom that wasn't facing the street, we could go up there to kind of rest for the afternoon. And while we were up there, Alex, one of our Ghanaian friends, just cracked the shutters enough to look out. And he said, while I was looking out, a truck full of those rebel soldiers came to the gate. And one of them jumped out, and he pointed to the gate. Come on, let's go in there. And the one in the truck just kept going. He says, come on. Finally, the truck started to leave. And the kid that kept wanting to go in to pillage had to run to catch up with the truck and jump into it. And they left. And we were never pillaged. Even that night, we had a group come to the gate. They wanted in. And the guard says, there's only God's people here. Go away. And they did. Why? I don't know. Are we any better than anybody else? No. The last time we had a war, we got pillaged and the others didn't. So, that's the way it happens. But we thank the Lord that we didn't. We sat there all day wondering, any minute those rebels are going to be here. And what's going to happen? And every time that gate rattled, I know all of us just, kind of froze up. Oh, here it is. But it never came. We were able to, since we had cell phones, get calls out, and that was a big help. Heidi was able to call our field administrator, Ginger, and she contacted all of our families to let them know, yes, there is a war, but they're all safe. No one has been killed. No one has been harmed. They're all right. And that evening, we got a call from our daughter. And about the time I answered the phone, a big blast of shelling went off. Mom, was that gunfire? Yes, it was gunfire. So it was awful close. I said, yeah, outside the gate. Don't you want out of there? Well, yeah, but how are we going to get out? All the roads are closed. I said, tell your friends to pray for us. Now, this is France. There aren't many praying people here. Susie's made friends with her neighbors, and one guy said, I haven't prayed for 20 years, but I'll pray for Susie's folks. Well, we were glad for that. But we were even more glad for all of our friends in the United States who were on praying ground, who were praying for us, and we knew that they were doing it, we could feel it. Well, we hadn't used our generator because we knew if we turned it on, that would be a signal, hey, we have one, and they would be in, so we in to take it. So we hadn't had it on at all. I think it was Tuesday that we got word that one of the Wycliffe couples from England had gotten a ticket on the Air France flight that was coming in on Thursday. But they had gotten that ticket from England. And Heidi says, you guys already have a ticket for next week. Why don't you call Susie and ask her if she can get you on this flight? So we got a call through to Susie and told her all about this, and she says, Believe me, I will try. So she began working on it. First of all, she calls Air France office. Thank you. Your dry weather affects our throats when we get over here. She called the Air France office, and she got the man who was in charge, and he says, I'm a refugee. Our office has been completely pillaged. There isn't one computer left. There's no way to do anything with tickets. Whatever you do, you have to do through Europe. She calls them again, and the lady says, this is a Bangui problem. You have to call them. And Susie says, you don't know that you no longer have an office in Bangui? Oh, she said, you know that, do you? That's so French, believe me. So there was room on that flight, and she called back quickly. She said, it's going to cost you $150 a piece to change it. I said, go for it. So she called back again, and she says, you're on the flight, but you don't have to pay the $150. Since it's a war situation, they have taken that off. But she says, Mom, now listen to me. Listen carefully. I've got your seat assignment, and if you ever get electricity, I will send it to you. But, she says, the next thing is do not try to go to the airport by yourself. If you do, you will be shot. The French had taken over the airport, and you could only go out there with a French escort, mainly a military escort. So she says there were people who tried to get out there yesterday, and 2 were killed. And we had heard that. So she says the French will be in charge, here we go again, of getting you to the airport. They will contact you. Okay, finally, Tuesday evening, we got a little bit of electricity. Wednesday, we got a little bit too, but then it went off. But other people were using their generators, so we got ours on, and our tickets came through. And we had not heard word one from the French. We were supposed to leave on Thursday. This was Wednesday. Eddie begins calling them. I'm telling you, you can't believe the runaround we got. Who are you? Where are you? Do you have a ticket? Do you have a passport? On and on and on and on. Trying to find out where we were. We thought we had it all nailed down. Then the next time he called, somebody different answered, and they didn't have a clue as to where we were. It was a nightmare. Finally, 6 o'clock that evening, we get a call from them. We'll be there in 10 minutes to pick you up. You never saw such a scramble in all your life, trying to get everything together. Jackie Jensen fixed some peanut butter and jam sandwiches for us and threw them in the truck as the truck came to get us, and threw all of our stuff in the back. And they said, quickly, quickly, get in, because curfew will soon be here, and we have to get to the embassy. That was the first clue that we even knew where we were going. And so they took us over to the embassy, and they said, get out. They never give a whole lot of information. And go into the embassy, sit down. So we did that. We sat there and sat there. They wanted to see our passports, and we gave them those. And a little bit, an African family came in. We visited with them a little bit. Finally, they came and they said, follow us. Bring all your stuff. They take us clear up to the back. And there was an army barracks. Now, I had lived there 40 years and never knew that was there. It's close to our embassy, but we'd never seen it. They had it well hidden. And they take us into this room. It was full, wall-to-wall cots, hot as blazes, no windows. I thought, oh dear, I'll die in here, you know. And then the little gal comes up, she says, follow me. And she goes up to another story of this barracks and takes us in there, and it wasn't as full, and they had fans from the ceiling going full blast. I thought, well, this may be survivable. And the guy has 2 cots under his arm. He says, where do you want me to put them? Well, I looked around and I said, over next to the Catholic sisters would be good. I knew they wouldn't rob us. I could trust them. And the Catholics had been horribly pillaged through all of this, and really targeted. the Pope apparently had gone on and asked these soldiers to please quit abusing the people, and that made them mad. So every place they found a Catholic church or a mission, they just went through and completely pillaged it. And I wanted to talk to some of the sisters to find out what had gone on, and I got a hold of one that had probably been there for years, older lady. She was just devastated by it. She's probably given her life to that country. And in a day, had seen just everything being taken away and destroyed. So they had gone through a really rough time. So we were supposed to pick up on this little trip to the embassy. The embassy, little Wycliffe gal, Kathleen, who was supposed to have the birthday party, but we weren't able to go to it. But that truck that we were in wasn't stopping any place, and so after we got to the barracks, they handed us K-rations. It had canned mackerel in it, so I went for the peanut butter sandwiches. I don't like canned mackerel. And about an hour later, in comes Kathleen. We were delighted to see her. Wycliffe had managed to get the Swiss to go and pick her up. So she was there with us, and she began working from 8 o'clock to 11 o'clock that night, trying to get the other Wycliffe couple with the kids from England on that flight and getting somebody to go and pick them up. Finally, she came in, she says, guess what? They discovered they had a GPS, and now they know exactly where they are, because they were out in the village a little ways, out the edge of town. So the next morning they sent a taxi out to the soldiers to get them, and they were safely at the airport. So about 11, I looked at this whole scene and I said, you know, I'm not going to sleep at all. But I did. About 4, we woke up and packed in the dark and went outside a little bit. They had us come down to the embassy again, and there was our convoy. 3 tanks in it, at the beginning, in the middle, and the end. Besides trucks with guns on them, interspersed between UN buses that would be taking us to the airport. Boy, I said to myself, I hope a poor African with a gun doesn't appear. He'll be evaporated. But we had, of course, played the waiting game again, and my knee was beginning to throb, so I found a couple of bricks and went to sit down on them, and an African soldier comes running up. He says, Mama, you don't have to sit there. I'll put you on the bus. I said, well, that'll be nice. So we were the first ones on the bus. And we then soon started our trip through Bangui with this convoy. And we finally, after a couple more stops, managed to get out to the airport. They let us all out, gave us our luggage, and then all 300 of us had to get through that airport. At every checkpoint, the people who were supposed to be working at the airport were still scared. They hadn't come to work. They had one person at each checkpoint. And you had 300 scared people, no air conditioning, pushing, shoving, babies screaming. It was a nightmare. I thought, we are never going to get through this. But we finally did. And finally got out to the airplane and flew out of Bangui and got to France. And as we flew out, I had guilt feelings. We're leaving this place, but leaving 4 missionaries behind. And I was just delighted when our field administrator, a lady by the way, had the nerve to go out there and see what was going on. She said, I was scared to death the whole time I was there. She went to the missionaries that were left. She said, you are not staying here. It is not safe. You have your choice. You go to the States or you go to Cameroon. So one of them was just almost scheduled for a vacation in the States anyway. She came to the States. The rest of them have been working at our station there in Cameroon. But we were delighted to hear that, because that was our opinion of the whole situation, believe me. So, what has happened since we've been gone? CAR is about 60% Christian. when you count Catholics, Protestants, everything. And it is these guys' idea to create a Muslim country in CAR. You wonder at times, does God see what is happening? Of course He does. He loves the Africans, and we know He will be with them. They are facing some of the most difficult things that they have ever faced in their life, and one of the things that has impressed me has been their testimony through all of this. We've lost everything, they will say, but we give thanks to the Lord. We're still here. We haven't been killed. It's just incredible. They aren't bitter. We had a pastor about 20 kilometers from Yaluki who had a son that was mildly retarded. And when the rebels went in there shooting their guns, he was horribly upset, and he went out and he said, "What are you doing? Why are you doing this?" And he laid his hand on one of their guns, and they turned the gun on him and shot him and killed him. At that point, his dad comes running out of the house screaming, "What have you done to my son? Why did you do this?" They turned the gun on the pastor and shot 3 times and missed 3 times. There was a Muslim man, probably a storekeeper from that same town, standing there watching all of this. And he said, "You know, he's a man of God, and God isn't going to allow you to kill him. You might as well leave." And they did. Through all of this, I really feel that we're going to be hearing many stories like this. God does protect His own, and God knows that they're there. And somehow, God has a solution for this. It hasn't come yet. Every time we get a letter, our Africans say, "Pray for us. We're going through hard times, but pray for us." God is there. He will help us. We've gotten word that some multinational African soldiers are coming in and hoping to establish some security in the country. I hope they get up to Yaluki very quickly, because that group of soldiers up there is the same group that's been plaguing Darfur. And they want to set up Sharia law at Yaluki. The Africans are so terrified they're not even coming out of their houses. They don't want to go to the market. They don't want to go to the garden. They're scared to death. So pray that those soldiers get there quickly and can resolve some of this and get these people out of there. It's garden planting time. If they don't get their gardens planted, there's going to be a famine in CAR. So pray much that the whole situation will be stabilized, and pray too that our Africans will be salt and light in a very dark situation, even being testimonies to their abusers. Pray for them. They need it. Thank you.
Just a minute or two. We're really close. Has anybody got any really burning questions? Anybody before we close? Don't see it. Okay, let's have a word of prayer for Africa this morning. Father, we thank you for your hand that has been in this situation, as it's been shared with us, of your deliverance for your missionary servants, as well as many of your servants that live there in the Central African Republic. And Father, it's so hard for us to understand why you allow these things to happen, but we know that your ways are not always ours, and that you are there for yourself to be glorified and for your word to go out. And Father, we just pray for these people that are there, that you would grant them relief from the terror and from the oppression that they're enduring, and that at the same time you would give them ability to be your testimony there. thank you for the courage that they have to cling to their faith and not to abandon you and to leave that they have learned and that they know for the faith that you've given them. Father, give them strength this morning for the ordeal ahead. Bring in relief quickly and help us to be faithful in supporting them in prayer, to not be so caught up in the ease and the goodness and blessings of life that we have here in this country that we forget that there is another world out there in many places, of which Africa is one, that we might be faithful for them in prayer. Thank you for our time this morning, and just thank you that you have allowed us to be a small part in this work, and that you would help us to see what you would ask of us in the future, that we would be faithful to be serving you as you would call. Thank you, Jesus.